away from the film, I would say one of the key impressions I had from the film was the animation, specifically, of course, her animation, animating this girl. We know it's an animated character. They make no secret about it. And I have to say, as far as her emotions and facial expressions, I would have to say it's hands down the best animation I've ever seen, dealing with facial expressions and emotions and conveying all that stuff. I mean, we've seen a little bit here and there in different films. If you go back to, say, like Incredibles 2, those characters showed a lot of different facial expressions and moods and stuff like that. But as far as that technique, this was really state of the art. I mean, they showed so many nuances of emotion. Is really quite remarkable, very remarkable, and more emotion than you might even see with a human actor. It was that nuanced and that proficient. So, I mean, that was one of the prevailing thoughts I had as I was seeing it. Wow, they capture so many of this girl's complex emotions. And let's face it, throughout this movie, she was faced with a lot of dilemmas. She didn't know who she was. She didn't know what her purpose was. She didn't know who to trust. She was thrust in the middle of a lot of dilemmas, thrust in the middle of a lot of situations with different people who all had their own agenda, basically, and she's dealing with her newfound powers and coming of her own. So it had to really convey a whole lot of different feelings and emotions, and they really pulled that off very well. So as I was coming away from the film, let me just give you my thoughts on other films that this was reminding me of in one way or another, and let's see whether this may have occurred to you as well. So one movie that occurred to me was Blade Runner, in the sense that this was a genetic person, a genetic character who may be human or robotic or a combination of both, and in the end, they're fighting the big corporation, that kind of vibe. So in that sense, it reminded me of Blade Runner to a small degree. Another film, Ghost in the Shell. Again, we have sort of a cyborg kind of girl who is fighting against the big corporation, in a sense, and all the villainy people associated with the corporation. Another film that came to mind was District 9, in the sense that you had this big structure in the sky, and we really don't know what the purpose of the structure was or what was happening there, even though they did explain it in this film, and frankly they did explain it in District 9, but still there was this imposing city, craft, whatever you want to call it, in the sky that was just there for ages and ages, and no one really knew what was going on inside the structure, and then eventually we see some interaction between the structure and the people below. By the same idea, it reminded me a little bit of Elysium, that Matt Damon film, in the sense that you had a lot of regular people on the ground and people experimenting with bioelectronics and stuff, and they're all trying to get to this fantastic panacea place in the sky where people lived in luxury and had their problems solved and this, that, and the other. So in that sense, those types of concepts reminded me of Elysium. And then we get into the films that reminded me of related to the game plan. So, for example, Speed Racer, at least the more modern film rather than the TV series, reflected the importance of a game and a track, and sort of corporate implications of the winners and the losers and what have you. So in that sense, it reminded me of that. More recently, it reminded me of Ready Player One, where again there was an importance of a track and a game and contestants, and they represented different entities, and the winner was rewarded in that film with controlling basically the whole corporate world, or controlling a lot of things. And here the winner didn't just get a prize or money or a trophy. They got rewarded with being one of the exclusive people to go up to the big mysterious place in the sky. So in that sense, I saw some comparisons and some similarities. Another film, it reminded me of Rollerball. Again, there's been two versions of that. One in '75 with James Caan, which, if you're watching this, most of the people watching this probably don't even heard of that. And there was another remake in 2002, and frankly, a lot of the viewers may not have even seen that. But suffice it to say, and I'm more familiar with the '75 version. At any rate, they both involve a game. In fact, the Rollerball game is very similar to this game that they had planned, with the ball, and you had to retrieve it and fight over it and put it in some type of basket or whatever you want to call it. So the game in ALITA was very similar to Rollerball, same type of concepts. And again, in Rollerball, a lot of corporate implications to the players in the game. It was more than just a league and teams. I had very high corporate implications from the game. So again, that's another film that conceptually this film reminded me of. Okay, now getting into the actors and actresses. Obviously, whoever played ALITA did a very wonderful job. At least as I guess I'll call it a voice actress. Did a very wonderful job. I don't know all the behind the scenes, but if I had to guess, I'm guessing that they hooked this actress up to a lot of little sensors and everything to accurately read her expressions and everything like that. So she did a very good job with that. I mean, James Cameron is a co-producer of the film, famously known for Avatar, of course. And in Avatar, as you recall, obviously those creatures were all animated, and they as well had to emote a lot of sophisticated emotions, and he utilized a lot of very sophisticated sensors to detect all the little facial expressions. So really, in this film, it was almost the next generation of that type of computer-generated emoting, if you want to call it that. So whoever played her, I will give her all the credit in the world. To the people who want to say, "Oh no, but it was just your voice." So blah, blah. No, I'm sure she did. I'm sure she did more than just provide her voice. I would suspect very highly that her physical performance was captured as well. Mahershala Ali, played a I'll call it an intermediate role. I didn't really see him as a major role, and frankly, his character was a little less sophisticated than, frankly, I expected. To be perfectly honest, it really didn't have a lot to do, if you really think about it. I mean, if you saw his performance in the trailers, that pretty much summed up what you saw of him in the film. This wasn't a guy who, to my assessment, didn't show a lot of different complex layers to him. All right. If you want to compare that to Blade Runner, where the guy who was making all the synthetics, and that head of the corporation seemed to have a lot of different complex intriguing layers. Can't say that about Mahershala Ali. Now you're going to say, well, hold on now. Mahershala Ali wasn't really the mastermind. It was this other guy up in the Zolom or whatever that place was. He was the mastermind. Mahershala Ali was just a puppet. So blah blah blah. No, but still, I expect a little more complexity to that character. Now it's not Mahershala Ali's fault, but that I didn't find that character was written with much complexity. Jennifer Connelly I thought was a nice addition. Again, she was very mysterious. You never knew what side she was playing or what her agenda was, and it turned out, she did some unexpected things. Now I have to be perfectly honest, I didn't expect her to become good-natured at the end, but she did, so that was a nice surprise. Alita's boyfriend, don't remember the guy's name in the film, that's irrelevant, but he was very credible. Of course, they threw in the little love story there, just like they did in Ready Player One. They have to, pretty much just like they do in Into the Spider-Verse, pretty much feel they have to add a little love story there. So they had the little love story. It was very, I would say it was just about right. I mean, they didn't understate it or overstate it. And again, she did show a lot of naivete when it comes to relationships. Let's face it, giving him her heart and all that kind of stuff, which was a little cringy if you think about it. But it was meant to be cringy and overdone and overstated. So I get it. So overall, it was just enough. It was just enough to make it a love interest without going overboard. Christoph Waltz gave a very solid performance. Can't quibble with anything that he did in the film. That said, I'd have to say I was expecting a little more from his character, a little more complexity, a little more to do. Yeah, I know that he took us by surprise. We found out he's a hunter warrior, a bounty hunter. Okay, I get that. Still, I thought he could have been a little more complex, or his character could have had a little more to do. He gave off sort of a little, Geppetto vibe, Geppetto from Pinocchio, in the sense that he had this little unanimated child, and through his crafting, transformed this child into a more human child. So in that sense, he gave off heavy Geppetto vibes. I'll put it that way. But again, and we've all seen him in a million films. He's usually, like, lately he's been kind of very villainy. Here again, he's not a villain, really, pretty much on the good side. But I walked away thinking that he didn't really have a lot to do. Yes, he played very important roles in reassembling her and doing surgical stuff robotically. And yes, he had the little intrigue with Jennifer Connelly. There's a little backstory with his daughter. I get all that. He did have a lot to do, but I still came away feeling he could have done more. I can't really explain it more than that. So, again, those are the major thoughts that I had from seeing it. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed today's presentation, and I will see you again next time. Bye bye.